Меня зовут Сергей Кольцов, я руководитель одной из команд разработки в Yandex Pro. То мы занимаемся с командой core-функциональностью. Это все то, что не видят обычные пользователи, но то, чем пользуются разработчики, наши разработчики. Яндекс на протяжении уже многих лет развивает сразу несколько разных больших направлений технологических. В первую очередь, конечно же, сейчас искусственный интеллект, городские системы. Это все, что делает, допустим, Яндекс.Го и сервисы вокруг. Это фантех, так называемый, это технологии вокруг развлечений. Это музыка, кинофильмы. Возможно, еще что-то, что я мог забыть. Наверное, самое простое, банальное, но рабочее правило — это, давайте назовем это, жаждать. Потому что, когда ты студент, ты должен быть готов хватать все доступные тебе знания, возможности, практику. Второе — это обязательно нарабатывать опыт, потому что, да, знания важны, безусловно, их нельзя просто опустить и только опытом заниматься, но опыт — это то, что в конечном счете приведет вас в компанию. Устроиться в Яндекс или пройти на стажировку есть у всех. Я думаю, что тут важно, что у студентов технического вуза, любого, очень хорошие возможности попасть в Яндекс, потому что, когда ты обучаешься фундаментальным основам компьютер-сайенс, это, в принципе, дает хороший толчок, это хорошая такая база, от которой можно стартовать. И если человек поверх этой базы накладывает уже практические навыки, какие-то свои знания, свои интересы, это то, что рождает такого заинтересованного разработчика или какого-то технологического менеджера, который же может впоследствии претендовать и на стажировку, и на вакансию, и дальше развиваться внутри компании. Первое пожелание, которое у меня родилось, оно очень противоречивое, но я его все-таки озвучу, как бы оно странно не прозвучало. С одной стороны, хочу предложить и посоветовать, и пожелать фокусироваться на чем-то одном, развиваться в этом, найти то, что нравится, и приложить все усилия вот в эту часть. Это то, что позволит стать крутым специалистом в этой области. Но при этом, вот как раз в чем противоречие, не закрываться от всего нового, что есть вокруг, и поглядывать по сторонам, пробовать разное, потому что это то, что в какой-то момент либо позволит найти то интересное, что хочется, либо очень органично дополнит вот тот фокус, который есть, потому что это будет некоторый кругозор, и это будет лучше с любой точки зрения. Okay, so one more time, hello everyone. My name is Sergey, and today we will talk about the main cross-platform of this year, of the next year, and I guess of the next few years at least. So. But before we get started with the lecture, let me give some, how do you call it, disclaimers, let's call it. So the first disclaimer is about my voice. So I got ill recently, and just let it not to interrupt you with my voice. So this won't be like just a lecture, it will be more of a conversation, but it's hard to conversate with like a big audience. So basically, I will ask you some questions, and you just raise hands answering them. And maybe you can ask me if you are interested in some topic. You just raise your hand, and when I finish with some sentence or some thought, I will give you to ask something. Okay, 3 disclaimers, and we are ready to go. So let me introduce myself, and then I will meet you. After the lecture, I will give you the history of this picture, just like in the future. So I'm a mobile developer. I'm a mobile developer at Yandex for the last, I guess, 7 years. I have worked as an Android developer, system of the car navigation. So it was like Android operating system and the launcher on top of it. It was developed by Yandex. It's still developing by Yandex. And after that, I switched the team to the current team, the one I'm working now. And we will talk about this team later at Yandex Pro. Also, I'm team lead at this team. So at Yandex Pro, I do like core stuff. You can call it like platform or core stuff. So we do like instruments, tools for other developers. So we don't do features for end users, but our users is developers. I'm speaker. I do some talks from time to time, and this is one of these talks. And also a teacher. It happened to be that I organize some teaching activities, I do some teaching stuff, and so on. So, and who are you? So now I want you to do this like conversation with me, but by asking you some questions. So, first of all, who are iOS developers? Does anybody work with iOS or worked someday? None. Okay, it's interesting. Okay, let's go next. Android developers. Raise your hands if you are an Android developer or somehow related to the Android. Okay, if you... Okay, raise your hands if you are a mobile developer. Really? Why do you need my lecture? Okay, and not like any other computer science, not mobile, just raise your hands. Backend, frontend, like AI, etc., etc. Okay, let's move on. Now it's more clear who are here in the audience. So we will talk about mobile development here and about the thing that can, how do you call it in the Lord of the Rings? To rule them all, yeah, the one to rule them all. We will talk about the most popular cross-platform framework now. So you said that it's Flutter, and I hope I know that you all think the same. So this is the most popular cross-platform framework. Yes, there are some other cross-platform frameworks. We will talk about them also in this lecture. But still, I want you to feel, to understand, if you are not, that Flutter is the future of mobile development, at least one of these futures. Of course, native development will not gone, but Flutter will have like a big part of this development, and I will explain you why, and try you to like be interested in it and to dig. So yes, Flutter. But who doesn't know what Flutter is? Just raise your hands. Flutter is an open source framework for building beautiful, natively compiled, multi-platform applications from a single code base. This is the sentence just right from the original site. So this is how they say about themselves. And I noted a few words in order to like focus you on them. So open source. This means it on the GitHub. Dart is a computer language that used by Flutter for development. So Dart is a computer language, Flutter is a framework on top of this computer language. Dart and Flutter, they are open source, both open source. Beautiful, natively compiled. So beautiful is about UI. So basically Flutter is UI framework. And from that, from that idea, you can think, okay, so I can build UI, my application only, I can build only UI in my application with Flutter, but how do you solve this like logical stuff, business logic, data, and so on and so on. So what do you use for that? And I say you Flutter. You also use Flutter, and basically not even Flutter, but Dart. You just use pure Dart for your business logic. And we will talk about this later, but we will have like about 90% of our code base written in Dart. This is a single code base. And this is about the last word, like single code base and multi-platform. So we built for 6 platforms. It's iOS, Android, web, and desktops, 3 desktops. We built for all of these platforms with one single code base. Now about popularity. Maybe you have seen this chart, but let me show you one more time. So Flutter is the first one, and this is the rise of each cross-platform framework from year to year. So there's years, and these bars are about the year, the single year. So now you can see that Flutter has grown for the last 5 years. I don't have the statistic for the current year, but still I think it will be the same. And also you can notice that each of other cross-platform frameworks, they are either stagnating or decreasing. This is why also Flutter has its power, because none of other frameworks has it. One more statistic, it's about current year. So Flutter is almost top of the most popular frameworks ever, not only cross-platform. So this was about, not this, this was about only cross-platform frameworks. This is about any framework. And Flutter is in the top 10, like almost in the top 10, top 11. Flutter is built by Google. So what do you think about Google? What if Google kills Flutter? Google is like a company that kills a lot of its products and projects. And it's okay. It's okay to kill projects that are not successful, that are like wasting resources of the company. It's absolutely okay. And it can happen with Flutter too. But this was the question I really struggled to answer recently, because when I was asked this question, I okay, I don't know. It can be. So I can't argue with that. But then I decided to do one thing. So this is a normal distribution of the probability to be killed by Google by age of the project. So you see this peak here somewhere in 60 months, I guess. And this is where Flutter and Dart now. So they are already passed through this peak. They are still not in the last part, but it's better than nothing, let's call it. And the second thing about this, killing Flutter by Google, is, do you remember what word was here? Open source. Yeah, it's open source. It's you just copy this project and you develop it by yourself if it has been killed. And moreover, two more statistics. Now just any open source, but not just any open source. It's an open source that is almost top 5 of first contributors in this year. And top 10, yeah, top 10, and Flutter is top 5 is just by any contributors in the GitHub. It's meaning that there are tons of contributors who can copy Flutter and build it from scratch by itself. And not from the scratch, but to continue building Flutter by itself, by themselves. So this is the explanation why Google will not kill Flutter, most probably. And what about cases? What are applications out there that are built with Flutter? I will show you a few examples. There are many of them. And somewhere there was a link about applications. I will show it later. So, new bank. It's a banking service from Latin America, I suppose. And this is millions of users, and it's one of the most popular banks in Latin America. And it's written in Flutter. Okay, banking. Rife. This is one of my the most loved examples. I will explain you why. Because Rife is a tool. It's more like IDE or editor for building cross-platform runtime animations. So you build an animation. You can modify it in runtime by some variables. So you just, in your programming language, you change some variable and maybe your character looking side to side or something else in runtime. And this is really fun to animate. But we're talking about the tool. So the tool is built with Flutter. And this is cross-platform. It's in web, it's in desktop, not in mobile applications, of course, because I don't know how to use such mobile application, but still. And what is more interesting, why it's my beloved example, because when you build cross-platform animation with Rife, you can use this animation inside Flutter. So you're building Flutter animation with a tool written in Flutter, and you use it inside Flutter. Yeah, it's mobile application for drivers, for couriers, so it's the other side of Yandex Go. So from Yandex Go, you just order something, and your order shows in Yandex Pro. And this application is built with Flutter entirely. You can think that this is not like really hard to build application, but actually there are a lot of different system works, like system stuff that is going on. So you have to calculate price of order. Yeah, it's done on the back end, but still you have to like duplicate it inside this application. It uses camera, audio, video calls. Yeah, it's even video calls. So a lot of things. So it's not just some random startup, random prototype or something. It's a huge application. How it's huge? It's more than 2 million lines of code, and it's without counting CodeGen. CodeGen, it's like 2 million plus, actually. And this is, as I mentioned already, our code base. It's 93% written in Dart, in pure Dart, pure Dart and Flutter, and only like 2% iOS and Android. So just imagine how many resources you like, how efficiently you use your resources of your development when you like do 2 applications by one hand. This is the question from you to me, from those of you who are like didn't know about Flutter, or maybe you were not interested in Flutter. So now I'm trying to like, how do you call it, like sell to other developers why Flutter is good to at least try. I'm not saying that each developer must work with Flutter, because it will be like utopia, but still to know how to use it, it's really helpful for each of you, and that's why. So now we are focusing on 4 types of developers. These pictures was generated by AI. It's not my hand drawing. So let's focus on the first, no, not on the first, but on the third, backend developer. So why do you think backend developer needs Flutter? When you're a backend developer, it's hard to explain like random people what is the product you do. Okay, you can show them like endpoints, JSONs, but if it's not the developer, it will be hard to explain. And you just take Flutter, you like spend 2 days, like 2 evenings, and you have your showcase. So it's your easiest multi-floor front end, because it's really hard to get to build something, the minimum product in Flutter. Front-end developer. How do you think what is for front-end developer? Why do you use Flutter when you're front-end developer? I haven't said it here, but you're right. You can just omit React or omit like JavaScript and do web development with Flutter. But still, okay, let's say you are a front-end developer and you use JavaScript, but for your mobile users, it's better to build like normal application, because when you are a front-end developer, you are bound with browser, so you're still somehow like have some constraints. Building with Flutter, you don't have these constraints. You just build a normal mobile application. But still, Dart is really easy to start for a mobile developer, because it's it's almost JavaScript. When you first look at Dart, it's like JavaScript, but with null safety. So for you, it will be easy to start. iOS developer. So as we understood, there is no iOS developer, and I'm happy for you, because is any of you used Xcode? How do you feel about it? I don't think Xcode is like bad, and I don't like hate iOS developers for that they are iOS developers, but it's really hard to develop with this IDE. It's when you try another IDE, you just like it's a miracle for you when you before worked with Xcode. It's not my words. I'm not iOS developer. It's words of iOS developers. You build iOS application but you don't have to use Xcode. Android developers. So there were a few of you, and he's rude. Who knows what the heck is this? Kotlin, yeah. So now here we go. So this is Kotlin. Android developers okay, we have Kotlin. Moreover, we have Kotlin multi-platform. It's the same thing. It's like you build cross-platform, multi-platform, call it whatever you want, applications with Kotlin multi-platform, and you are like a god in development. Why do they need Flutter? Any ideas? It was a rhetorical question. But let me get deeper in the idea of these two frameworks, because basically it's different in the core of it. Flutter says, okay, you start building, you don't care about platform at all, and we handle it for you. When you decide to build your application, not to build, but to assemble your application, pick any platform you want, and we build it for you. This is the idea of Flutter. So it's framework that hides the complexity of any platform for you. Kotlin multi-platform says you have to care about your platforms. And this is okay, this is great, because we give you a tool that you can use for building shared code base. And this is the core idea. With Kotlin multi-platform, you build a shared code base. You don't build application. You cannot build an application, the entire application with Kotlin multi-platform. It's only for your business logic, for some shared components, and so on. So this is it's two different worlds, and they are not competing with each other. They are used for different things. But you can say, if you are really deep into this thing, you can say oh, Compose. There is Compose multi-platform. Do you know any of you raise your hands who knows what Compose multi-platform? Yeah, just a few. So Compose multi-platform, it's basically a UI framework for Kotlin multi-platform. So having Kotlin multi-platform and Compose multi-platform, you can build the entire application with Kotlin. It's true. Yeah, right. You can do the same in Flutter. So basically, Flutter and Compose, they give you the canvas, and you can draw anything on this canvas. And they give you UI toolkits, like Material or Cupertino, and you just draw these UI components with Flutter or Compose. So having this in mind, why do Kotlin developers need Flutter? So they have Compose, they have Kotlin multi-platform. And the only thing that differs here is that Compose multi-platform, it's at least few years. It's not stable, and it will be stable the way the Flutter is stable in few years minimum. Because now it's, as I remember, it's in alpha, and talked to developers who use Compose in production. They build with it, they build application with it, and they struggle. So they say that each release of Compose, it's their, how do you call it, terrible day in their life, because it can be, there can be broken dependencies, there can be broken, some APIs can be broken. It can behave itself differently from the previous version. And it's okay, because it's an alpha. It's the idea of alpha is that it's not stable. But you cannot build production-ready application with such an instrument. And a few years has to come when Compose will be the same way production-ready as Flutter is already. And also there is some problem about rendering engine. Flutter uses Skia rendering engine. Compose uses Skia rendering engine. So it's the same engine. So what is the problem, you say? The problem is that Flutter has faced the problem with animations a few years ago that couldn't be passed without rewriting the entire rendering engine. And they did this already. They almost did this. So they wrote an impeller, the Flutter rendering engine. They developed it by themselves. Precisely for their needs, just because Skia was not ready to some corner cases. More efficient usage of development team capacity. I think you understood it, but I just repeat that you can decrease your cost for development team, or you can increase your team and do more. With the same team that you have to have if you build with native tools. Unified UI and UX. We haven't talked about that, but when you use Flutter, you receive advantage, because most of big players on the market, they want their own UI, they want their own look and feel. And they don't want to divide it between platforms. So you know that we have one design guidelines for iOS. We want some design guidelines for Android. It's not for big companies. Big companies and also small companies too. They all want to unified design that follows their guidelines. And having Flutter, you just build it once, and you use it for any platform you want. It's hard to do the same for native development, because you have to develop different UI toolkits with different languages, with different sets of instruments, and so on. Single process for testing bugs, fixes, and metrics. It's not really obvious thing, but it's important one. Because when you fix something in Flutter, you fix it once and for all. When you fix something in native development, you just fix it for one set of users. And the same for testing. You test it only once, and you have metrics that are absolutely correlated with each other. So because when you have two different native development teams, they can put metrics in different places, and it will be the same metric, but it will appears in different places, and you have to somehow gather them between each other. It's hard. It's hard even when you're a small project, but if you're a huge project, it's almost impossible. Easy to coordinate the single Flutter mobile team. It's combination of the previous ones. So we have a team of almost 100 developers, 100 Flutter developers. It's not just backend, front end, and so on and so on. It's only Flutter developers. Just imagine if we would need to have two such teams. So how do you coordinate these two monsters doing the same product? Maybe we had to have more managers, more any other guys. But now we have single team. Yes, it's huge, but it's easier to coordinate it. Synchronize releases. It's also not a really obvious thing, but it's also important one, because when you build an application like we do that brings money to users, because users use Yandex Pro for earning money, and you created some feature that increases their income, but you saying, okay, well, we developed it for Android, but iOS in a month maybe, because it's harder to develop, because we use different architecture, and so on and so on. And for user, we provide experience that, okay, now Android users can earn more and iOS less, because I don't know why. And it's really crucial for such teams as our team that we can release at the same time. The difference between releases is a few days, and these days are just from the market's review. So maybe iOS will be reviewed earlier, maybe Android, but still it's in the range of the week. And unified approaches across the single code base. It's more about developers. It's easier to work when you in the team of the same. And also operating system market fragmentation. Maybe you noticed that, maybe you didn't think about it, but now there are many and many players on the market of applications. It will be. It's not like how do you like? It's not trend because of something. It's just the world works this way. And Flutter can be used for these different platforms. Not even not platforms in the sense of devices, but for platforms in the sense of operating systems. And also, yeah, of course, we couldn't skip this topic. How do we skip the topic of AI in like 2024? You can check out this repository. It's just on the GitHub. It's a prototype of the game. Yeah, if you want to scan it, or you can just remember the name bit.ly Flutter Alchemy, or you can scan it, or you can scan and share with the others in your group if you have one. Okay, so what is this project? It's a game, maybe you know this game, it's called Alchemy. Do you know this game? So when you have two different items and you like combine them and you receive like one more item that is combination of these two items. Do you know this game? No? So, some of you know, okay. And this is the same here. You just take like air and ground, you like combine them, but the idea is that this is powered by with AI. So when you combine these two things, we send a request to AI and say, okay, you have these two things, just give us a combination of these two things, and it returns it back. And also, when you go through this repository, you will find out that at the end of this, there is an iteration of pull requests. You can go through this pull request, so it's the entire development of this application. And at the end of this development, I had like the genius idea, not me personally, but the colleague has given me this genius idea. So he said, okay, just randomly generate the first four things. And this is like breaking change here, because when you randomly generate the first four things, then you receive like infinite amount of different combinations, and it's just fun to play. You just you can like copy this project, build it by yourself, and try it out. It's fun. I hope you will like it. And this is the end. Really, how do you call it? Like humble, yeah, humble. This is the word. A really humble call to action to just check out my channel about Flutter, and that's it. I'm ready to answer your questions. If you have some, you can ask them in English. You can ask them in Russian, as you wish. Смотрите, если у вас есть какой-то набор навыков на Java, ну, конкретно на Java, скорее нет, если очень коротко. Не можешь претендовать. Но с такими знаниями ты можешь претендовать на школы Яндекса. Ну, возможно, вы слышали о них, школы разработки, школы мобильной разработки, бэкэнд, ну и так далее. И пройдя эти школы, очень высока вероятность попасть либо на стажировку, либо в штат. Там в зависимости от того, как ты себя проявишь. Вот. Это, в принципе, мой совет всем. Я его вот только что кому-то из присутствующих тоже советовал. Я, если честно, потерял парня. Ну, это, на самом деле, такой единственный способ вот с таким скилл-листом это сделать. Вторая часть ответа, она немножко к Flutter потянется. С таким скилл-листом неплохо заходить в Flutter, как раз-таки потому, что Dart тоже похож на Java, да. В Ташкенте, я вот, собственно, в том числе здесь, в Ташкенте, потому что есть факультатив у этого трека по Flutter. То есть они учат Kotlin, учат Android, но у них есть 4 лекции, да, по Flutter. В основном там, правда, только Kotlin и Android. Flutter, он там скорее вот как дополнительная активность. Но Если вдруг вы размышляете о том, что вот вы Flutter-разработчик, и нужно ли вам учить там, Kotlin или iOS, и непонятно зачем, то ответ скорее нужно, если на это есть силы, потому что Flutter все еще строится поверх натива, и рано или поздно, особенно с ростом вашего опыта и там, грейда условно, вам придется столкнуться с нативом, и лучше раньше, чем позже знать. Я специально показал Yandex Pro, специально показал Rive, специально показал Nubank. Это примеры гигантских приложений, которые построены с Flutter, и все прекрасно у них работает. И здесь нет противоречия, потому что на Flutter действительно просто строить прототипы. Он очень простой для ознакомления. Я его в том числе поэтому советую как некоторый способ начать в принципе изучать какой-то фреймворк, потому что он дает очень быстрый дофаминовый результат. Ты типа тратишь вечер, и ты уже делаешь приложение, оно у тебя уже работает на твоем девайсе, и ты такой «Вау!». Вот. И, и это, как следствие, дает быстрое прототипирование, но это не ограничивает построение больших приложений. В том числе, скорее, это обзор того, какое сейчас Flutter вообще занимает положение вот в среде, и призыв к тому, чтобы все, даже те, кто не имеют отношения к Flutter, как минимум попробовали его, потому что это может быть полезно. Для сайт-проектов, для того, что, может быть, вам понравится, ну и так далее. Это может быть полезно с точки зрения, как раз-таки, вот я там упоминал, ну ладно, не буду сейчас переключаться, для фронт-энд разработчиков Flutter — это очень простой способ делать мобильные приложения. Ну, потому что, наверное, ты знаешь, как фронтендер, что ты ограничен вот браузером. Да, ты можешь там получать, конечно, какие-то доступы до телефона, но это все еще сложнее, чем будучи нативным приложением. Вот. В нативном приложении этой проблемы нет. Соответственно, если ты строишь продукт, который будет не только веб, но и мобильные приложения, ну, ты заинтересован в том, чтобы делать их нативно. А если ты знаешь Flutter в довесок к своему фуллстеку, то ты вообще просто full stack получаешься. Из универсального могу посоветовать следующее. Две вещи. Первое — это точно алгоритмы. Причем алгоритмы не заучивать то, как работают алгоритмы. И это бесполезно. Практиковаться. Идете на лид-код и решаете 100 задач минимум. Все, после этих 100 задач вы просто приходите на собеседование, решаете еще одну задачу, у вас получается 101 задача, и вы проходите в Яндекс. Вот это так работает. Ну, я утрирую, конечно, но суть, наверное, вы уловили. Вот, это первый универсальный совет. Практиковаться с алгоритмами. Второй универсальный, не с алгоритмами, а с решением задач. Второй универсальный совет – это когда вы на собеседовании, воспринимайте это не как экзамен, на котором вам нужно вот, как, там, от и до какое-то зазубренное что-то вам выдать. Воспринимайте это как обсуждение рабочей задачи со своим коллегой. Вот почему-то к вам коллега пришел и говорит, нам надо сделать вот это. Что бы это ни было, даже если это какая-то абсолютно бесполезная задача, которая просто в вакууме сформирована, все равно воспримите ее как полноценную задачу, которую вам поставили там, либо руководитель, либо вы сами там, ее откуда-то взяли, и просто рассуждайте так, как если бы это вы решали вот просто обычную задачу в рабочее время. Не воспринимайте это как прохождение экзамена, потому что собеседующие смотрят на то, как вы рассуждаете, и на то, как вы ведете себя вот в боевых условиях. Вот такой вот универсальный совет.